it in this position. Now, I know a lot of people will do it like sitting across from somebody, and I think that that's fine too. I just find it is very comfortable for me to have the patient laying down. Okay, so what we're gonna do here is we're gonna identify the proximal row, right? So we're gonna come down. Here's the two styloids of his radius and ulna. So what I'm gonna do is just below that is we're going to have the proximal and distal row, right? So back to back. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try to stabilize around that, those styloids, okay? And try to see if I can kind of stabilize it. And then my other hand will go almost right next to, so they're pretty close, they're pretty touching. And then from here, I'm just going to take a very easy distracting glide, okay? So if you wanted to, you could kind of lean back, get comfortable, use the bottom of the table to kind of generate a distraction technique, okay? It's very simple. Again, usually there's some, hopefully they're not in as much pain, and now, because you have to consider they probably came out of a wrist splint and they've been immobilized for a couple of weeks. So hopefully there's not pain, there's just some stiffness that they're feeling, okay? So we're gonna just kind of take a nice, easy distraction technique for that. All right, so that's picture number one. That's your okay, so here we're going to take for your general wrist range of motion. So now we're gonna take a dorsal and a volar glide. So a couple ways to do that. I could stand up and I am going to stabilize his arm with my hand against my table. And if this is like uncomfortable for them, you put a towel roll or something. Give us space there so that in case it's like this, like you can't get them quite down to the table, you filled up that gap. But what we're going to do here, and I could do one of two things. I could maintain that slight distraction and then go like towards the floor, like I'm pushing towards the floor, okay, for my palmar glide, and then I can kind of pull it up towards the ceiling to create my dorsal glide, okay? Now, your option is to maintain that grade 1 distraction first and then do the up and down, okay, the dorsal and volar glide, because there are, I think it's with some of the mobilizations with movement, they recommend having a slight distraction to sort of decompress the area and then mobilize, which might give you a little bit better glide. Okay, so very simply, it's the distraction. I could do it sitting, but you have to just be careful with the arm here. That's gonna not give me as good a position as that. Okay, so we want to have the force over, which is why I usually probably tend to stand up so that I can get that nice easy glide. Okay, so that's usually how I do that. And then here's our medial and lateral glide, just as simply. Again, I've stabilized through the radius and the ulna. I've got fingers right next to fingers. We're going to do our first distraction for that proximal row. And then I'm going to sort of glide right into the body, taking it into one of the glides here, and then glide here, okay? So we're going from medial to lateral. You got it? Pretty simple. You're just taking the whole row with you, okay? Because we haven't localized yet to exactly which of the carpals is the one that needs the most mobility. We're going to take all of them as a group first, and then you can go in and get that specificity. Okay, so this is a nice, easy, general mobilization that we can do for the wrist.
Dr. Bada, in the position here, going towards the body, then immediately, if they were to flip the hand over into like anatomical, would you then have to find a way to, like, would it still be considered a medial glide?
Yeah, I think.
Towards you, or?
Yeah, I think you have. I think this technically is a lateral glide. Because you have to always reference anatomically, okay, right? But I'm doing it this way. So technically, when I go towards the patient's body, it is a lateral glide, even though it looks like it's a medial glide. So yes, you would have to do that. You can do it. I think this isn't as comfortable So, and I don't know that I've seen a lot of textbooks or workbooks that do the treatment like this, but we just sort of know that that's actually lateral glide. Okay? Yeah. Good point out. Yeah, it's always tricky when we're dealing with this non-anatomical positioning. So, okay, and then we've got this radial and ulnar deviation. So again, I've got the same handhold that I have the whole time. I can create this grade 1 distraction, and then here what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create an ulnar deviation. Do you see how I'm sort of doing this with my hand, which is making, let me get the distraction, which is making his hand go into the ulnar glide position. You got me? Okay. And then if I reverse that, then we're going to go into more of a radial deviation. Okay, so that's really all I'm doing, which is very similar to the talus in the foot. If you remember how we kind of push the talus into that medial and lateral glide, that this is a very similar technique. Okay, now there are alternate positions that I've put in here for you. So if like that handhold is not comfortable, you could do it like this, which is going to be, I'm pushing the proximal row down into that ulnar glide. Do you see that? I could also keep the hand like this to do the medial glide. Okay, so you have different handholds that you could use. I've tried to put them into your slides for options for you guys, depending if you didn't like the handholds or the position that you're in. But these are a couple of ways that you can do this. Okay, but I tend to stay, you see how they've moved it from the top photo radially to ulnarly? I just stay here because you have enough strength to do this. This is a small joint with small motion. You don't need to put your whole body into it like a hip, okay? So I don't feel like you have to move, but if you felt like you needed the specificity, you would change it like this, stand up, create your distraction, and then push towards the floor, creating this ulnar deviation, okay? All right, so then let's work a little bit into the rest of the hand.